Hey, everybody, we have a great show today. Burnout, balance, and BS. How are you living your life? Yeah, so what is the deal with living a balanced life, being burnt out? What is the truth behind this? This is a very interesting topic because there's been so much written about balance when it comes to life and business or life and work for a long period of time. And a lot of people push for this whole balance idea. And I have a major issue with it. And the issue that I have with it is that the idea comes from the model that most of us are raised with, which we kind of call like the middle class mindset model, where we're balancing our work life balance, our work life home balance, our work life marriage balance, work life kid balance, work life health balance, so that all of these things balance out in a way where everything is getting the individual attention that it needs. We're giving the things the individual attention that they need. We're also balancing ourselves in a way where we stay healthy, and it's become a hot topic. And here's what I find fascinating about it is that when you look at this as a whole, when I say this, I mean the idea of the way people live their lives. When you look at it as a whole, if you look at some people that do extraordinary things in life, sometimes you find out that whatever the person did for their work or their contribution in life, for the majority of time, that's all that they did. Or you find out that other areas of their lives suffered. And we automatically come from this place that idea is wrong. I'm not so sure I buy into it, and I'll tell you why. Because if we come from the place that everybody has a purpose in life, and that the purpose itself should be number one, we remove a lot of paradigms about what people think the reason of our life is actually for. Now, let's take a look at a couple of these things. Some people are raised with the idea that their purpose in life is to go to school, get a job, get married, raise a family. Okay, I'm not saying that it's not. All I'm saying is that is a belief that is handed down from one generation to another. A lot of people accept that idea without giving it any critical thought whatsoever. It's just, well, that's just the way life is. That's what you do automatically. Then you have people that sometimes they think about that and they think, oh, no way in hell. That's not what my life is going to be. They don't even know if they want to be in a long-term relationship in their life. They know from an early age, let's say, that they're going to be a musician or a rocket scientist, or they're going to study medicine or politician or whatever. Like they have an inner sense of what they're going to be and do with their life, and that's primarily what they do. And they succeed at it. They love their work. They don't get burnt out doing what they're doing. They're passionate about what they do. And for the most part, most of their life, that's what they end up doing. And as I've looked at people over the years and have studied a lot of different people in the world, one of the things that I have found that's very interesting is that there's nothing that seems to give a person as much fulfillment as that of doing what they feel that they were put here to do. When a person does that, it's a very interesting kind of fulfillment that takes place in the heart and soul of the individual that's doing the work that they feel that they were put here to actually do. There's a completeness that they feel. And you'll often see that sometimes these people will do the other things also, like they'll get married or they'll have children. And then we often hear about that, the marriage wasn't the best or they're having problems with their kids. But you'll find out that they didn't necessarily put the time in to really make the marriage work, or they didn't put the time in to be the best mother or father that they could, that they spent an extraordinary amount of their time doing the work that they were doing. We automatically jump to this place of judgment where we say that's not a good thing, that they should put a lot of time into the marriage, they should put a lot of time into the relationships, they should put time into the being a mother or a father. And here's the truth. When you're going to take on things like a marriage relationship or the equivalent of that in your life, and you're going to take on the idea of children in your life and actually have children, you're setting up responsibilities for yourself that are very important, that are beyond just you, and you have a responsibility to some level to fulfill those responsibilities. But maybe we should reconsider what we want to do with our life before we take on those responsibilities. Because when I hear somebody come to me and they say they're doing some job, but they're completely burnt out, what really strikes me as odd is that burnout is not something that we generally see in nature anywhere. In other words, we don't see nature getting tired of being itself. We don't see nature getting burnt out. You don't see a penguin like going, oh, geez, dude, fuck it. Like, I am so burnt out being a penguin. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm going to look at doing something else. We don't see that in nature. We see it with human beings, though. And I have questioned it for a long, long time. And I honestly think that when a person is burnt out in what they're doing, they're probably doing something that they shouldn't be doing. Meaning that even if they think it's the right thing to do, they really need to re-question what and why are they doing the thing that they're doing. Because I don't see people that know they're in their life's purpose get burnt out. And let's be clear about something else. Being tired, needing a break, needing to recharge your batteries or whatever, is something that all of life does. Just like we all go to sleep, at some point. But that's not burnt out. Burnout is that I am mentally stressed to the max, where I'm no longer can be productive because I've been pushing myself too hard. The key word is pushing. We only push when we're doing something that we need to push ourselves to do. Now, we could go down a whole rabbit hole with the idea that we need to push ourselves to do various different things in our life because it's that, the so-called healthy thing to do that. Again, there's something about it that's off to me. And the reason that I say that is because it's not something that we see as a truth that shows up in nature. Why do I use nature as an example? Because nature is an extraordinary example of life. It takes on so many different forms beyond the idea of being human. And when we examine nature, the one thing that we see in nature is that nature just does itself. It is what it is. It doesn't try to become something else. It doesn't worry if it's done the right thing. It just passes on from one generation to another its strengths, and it continues to move forward, providing human beings don't get involved. But when human beings get involved, then everything's up for grabs. So we won't go there. But with human beings, we have this conscious choice that seems to get us in trouble sometimes. And when we don't understand how to follow our inner guidance, we can end up in a whole host of different responsibilities or jobs or situations or careers. We can create our lives in so many different ways that we don't necessarily do the thing that we were born here to put here to do. And that causes us to experience things like burnout. It causes us to experience things like being out of balance. And that makes me really call BS on the whole idea of having this work-life balance. I think that we need to if we're going to come from a place of balance, we need to come from a place of inner balance first. And I think if we get our inner balance right, we're going to get the other components of our life right to a certain degree also. The first thing is that we need to know who we are. And we need to know what it is that we want and what we're going to do. Now, there's nothing out there that says that you cannot take on other responsibilities in your life before you know those things. And in fact, many people do take on other responsibilities in their life before they know those things. And then they come to find out years later that they made an error in the idea that they never followed what they wanted to do. So now they end up having to do things that they don't like to do to fulfill the responsibilities that they took on when they were younger. I did that very early on in my life. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I ended up getting married and having children and found out very quickly that, I kind of put the cart before the horse there because I really didn't have the ability to take care of those things properly in my life. I had not taken care of myself. I had not educated myself. I did not get myself in a good financial situation. I was not emotionally healthy. I didn't know how to have a healthy relationship. And yet I committed to all of these things, not having any clue how to do those things. So basically, I could not even take care of myself in a really great way. And I started having children. So what would make me think that I could take care of them in any better of a way that I was taking care of myself? And, it was complete ignorance that caused me to do that. I was fortunate enough to be able to recognize it early enough on that I could begin to make changes, and hopefully those changes had a long-lasting impact in a positive way upon other people in my life, including myself. But it took a lot of introspection. It took a lot of radical honesty about what I was not doing right in order to be able to do it. But I came to another realization that I thought was also very interesting. And that was that once I began to ask different questions where I started to realize that something was wrong, a lot of the problems that I was creating and a lot of the reason why some of my change took quite a bit of time was that I was not being honest with myself about what I really wanted in my life. And in many areas, I don't need to go into what the areas are because it doesn't really matter. What matters is that we all have areas of our life where we're not being honest with ourselves. And when we're not honest with ourselves in one area of our life, we usually do something to make up for it. So I told myself the story that I did not know what I wanted to do. That actual story is not 100% true. Even though consciously in my mind at the time, if you'd asked me the question, what do you want to do? I would have told you I don't know. I was exposed to something similar to what I do now very early on in my adult life. And my immediate reaction was, well, first I thought, well, that's cool as hell. However, I don't know how I would ever do that. So I immediately kicked it out of my mind and didn't give it much of a second thought. Had I sat down and asked myself the question, why is it that you think this is so cool or so interesting? and I would have actually found a lot of reasons that probably would have led me to doing it much faster than I actually did. But my first reaction was to just kick it out. Now, I don't have any regrets about the way that I've lived my life, so I don't regret that. I find all of it a very interesting learning experience. But if a person's going to pass down any wisdom to a next generation, it's kind of like, well, what are the things that you've learned in life that you could pass down that would help other people? And one of them is that I don't think we need to suffer from burnout if we're actually picking the thing, if we're being honest with ourselves and doing what we really want to do. The other thing about burnout that's very interesting is I often find people that are doing the things that they want to do in life, but they're suffering from burnout. When I start digging into what they're doing, I find out that some of what they're doing is not what they want to be doing. So let me give you a for instance on this. I work with a lot of business owners and helping them increase their business, become more effective, earn more money, step into their purpose, live their dreams, that type of stuff. And what a common thing that business people do, especially when they start out, especially if they're bootstrapping a business, is they're doing everything themselves. Well, it probably is not your purpose to do everything in your business yourself. As a matter of fact, I've never met anybody whose purpose is to do everything in their business themselves. But what we do is we come from this lie of lack, where because we don't believe that we have the money or believe that we have the resources, we start off from a place of doing everything ourselves. Now, I'm not going to get into like, well, how can we not do that? Okay, because there's too many variables in everybody's life to be able to try to go through all of them here on this podcast. Part of it is that you have to think a little bit for yourself here and think about what are you actually doing and what are you accepting in your life that's a non-truth that's causing you to do all of these things that you don't like doing and that you shouldn't be doing. I do believe when a person starts a business in the beginning, they need to know enough about the different areas of their business so that they can make intelligent decisions to actually, number one, bring funds in to expand the business and run it, but also to hire intelligently for the things that they're not particularly good at doing, nor do they necessarily enjoy doing. And that means that you have to have the intelligence and the emotional maturity to hire people that are better than you in areas that you're not skilled at doing, nor do you want to do in your business, so that the business can grow and it can function as a healthy entity in and of itself. Yes, you may be the leader of your business. You may not be the leader of your business. You might be the talent in your business, and you lead with an overall vision of the company, but you have someone that is like a CEO or a general manager or a COO, something like that is actually leading a team of people to keep the entire thing going. Like, it comes down to knowing who you are so that you're doing the thing that you get a lot of charge, a lot of good charge from, a lot of stimulation from, a lot of curiosity about, and a lot of fun in doing it. I've studied people that have been very good at this over a long period of time in their business. I'm talking 30, 40, 50, 60 years where they're in there doing the same thing and they're still productive at it today. And one of the things that you find out is they don't do what they're not good at. They exemplify what they are very good at, which keeps the creative energy moving so they don't get burnt out. They do take time off. They do take time to recharge their batteries. They usually take in a tremendous amount of content that is required to keep them stimulated to keep producing or creating in the ways that they actually create. And if they do have balance in their life because they have other things that are important to them, like say a partner or a spouse or a family or whatever, because they have the main core of what they do in the right perspective in their life, they're able to set up more of a balanced situation with their family. Here's another thing when it comes to family. When you're choosing a person that you want to be in partnership with, as in an intimate partnership in your life, you have to be very careful that you're choosing someone that understands what's important to you in your life and how you're going to show up in that situation. Very often we pick the wrong person. We're very passionate about the work that we're doing. That's going to be number one in our life. And we pick a partner who they want to be number one. And they want more time than you're going to give your business or whatever, and they don't necessarily have that direction in their life, and then that causes extreme stress and issues within the relationship, and eventually it spills over into the business and it hurts the kids. It just creates a mess. So the real answer to this, to cut out all the BS, is to understand that the balance, that if there is a balance, it is being in balance with ourselves first. And that comes from radical honesty. Who are we? What is it that we want to do? What's important to us? And allowing ourselves to be okay with whatever that is. That means if you don't want to be in a relationship, a traditional relationship, you don't have to be in one. If you don't want to bring children in the world, you don't have to bring children in the world because somebody else told you to. If you've already created some of these things in your life, how do you get them straightened out in a healthy way where you take care of your responsibilities, but you're also taking care of your main responsibility, which is your responsibility to yourself first, so that you can show up for those other responsibilities in a very healthy way? They're just really honest questions. And if we're honest with ourselves, the answers are generally easy. Yes, we may have to make some big changes in our life. We may have to change what we're doing. We may have to change who we're doing it with. We may have to learn some things. We may have to double down on some things in our life in order to move from one, from a job to a business, or from one area of work to another area of work. And the reason that we might have to double down is because we have other responsibilities. We may not have a lot of money to do so. So we have to figure out, how do we get enough so that we can actually make the transition to do from one thing to another. But doing nothing is not the answer either, because then that does lead to things like imbalance and burnout. So the idea is that we stop lying to ourselves. That's the whole BS part of burnout, balance, and BS. We stop lying to ourselves. We stop giving ourselves the line of BS about what we can't do, why we can't do it, why we shouldn't do it. We start following our heart's desire that is telling us which way to go. We realize that if we have a true desire to do something in our life, that is our internal higher self giving us direction to do that in our life. And then we start to get our life in that kind of order. Then I think what ends up happening is we bring a true balance to our life as an individual for the direction that we're going, and for who we want to be, and the benefits that we actually want to bring to other people. This can seem a little complicated at first when you sit down to actually begin to work this out. But if you bring the radical honesty and the correct perspective to it, you'll find that you can make it all fit. The hardest part that I've come across for most people to deal with is sometimes within the change of this, bringing the true balance back to our own life, is that sometimes we have to let relationships go that we created out of some kind of a dysfunction earlier in our life. So that, because we're knowing ourselves from a different place, and we realize we just set up relationships that aren't functional, and sometimes we have to let those go and create different relationships that serve us in a different way. And to know that that's okay, to literally give ourselves permission to say, hey, look, I'm a human being. If it's not serving me, it's not serving them either. It may be time to let that relationship go. Live up to whatever responsibility is a consequence of that, because I'll guarantee you there's always a consequence to those kinds of responsibilities that we take on. That's part of life. Just accept it. Don't regret it. Don't be vindictive about it. Don't judge it. Just be like, this is the consequence that I have. I have to live up to it. I need to do this, including your parental responsibilities, and you do them to the very best of your ability. But what you're doing is you're slowly getting your life back on the track that it's supposed to be on, and you learn from it and you move, and you're grateful for all the experiences in your life. Never regret anything, because everything is leading you to the place that you're going to go, and it's been 100% essential for you to have those experiences to be the person that you are. Be very grateful for the fact that you're waking up to this idea so that you can literally take charge of your life and move it in the direction that you want to go. Have a great day. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Burnout, Balance, and BS. What did you find out that was true for you? What changes are you going to make? Leave the comments below, and be sure to check out the rest of our shows.